Hi. You're all set.
Hello, everyone. This is the third edition of Stories with Bob. Since this is such a personal time, I decided to give you three short personal stories. I call these my lessons in life, and I pass them on to you because I'm not scared. My father passed away in 1958, leaving my mom with three boys, 7 and under, and pregnant with Greg. She put us in Catholic school where over at St. Louis and Alexandria, where we grew up. I had all nuns for 8 years, nuns. And they're the ones with the penguin hats, not the ones you see now. It's the old school ones, like from The Sound of Music. So in sixth grade, I got moved to the front of the class, which was a good move, really, because I was cutting up in the back. And Sister Joseph Mary would be writing on the blackboard, and then somebody dared me, to get out of my seat in the front and go up behind her. So, of course, I did. Went up behind her, turned around to the class. They're all laughing. I get back to my seat before she turned around. So then she goes on the blackboard again, starts writing. I go up behind her again. This time, I give her the old rabbit ears behind it. And I'm turning around laughing at the class. Yes, rabbit ears to Sister Joseph Mary. She turns around right in my face as I'm giving her the rabbit ears. She grabs me by the arm, pulls me around in front of the class, takes a ruler off her desk, pulls my pants down so my bare butt is facing the class, and proceeds to whack me on my bare butt. Okay? So I went home that day and told my mom. She goes, "What were you doing?" So I told her what I was doing. And my mom said, "Well, I guess you got what you deserved, didn't you?" And that was it. End of story. So now we flash forward to my freshman year at Bishop Ireton, now all priests back then and all boys. My freshman year, I had a buddy named Joe. Me and him were on the track team. And one day we were in the library, Father Green's library. And Father Green's all white hair and a bad man. I mean, you didn't mess around in Father Green's library. And unbeknownst to you kids now, and maybe even your parents, but back in the 60s, this is like 1966, they had all the World Series games were played in the afternoon. None, zero at night, all in the afternoon. Well, at Bishop Ireton, you had the dressing coat and tie and dress shoes and everything. And we were in Father Green's library, and we had both just gotten a transistor radio, the newest thing, man. It wasn't that big. It sit right inside of our pocket of our jackets, And then we had the thing coming out into our ear, and we're listening to the World Series while we are pretending to be in study hall studying. And of course, it was an epic moment in the middle of the World Series, and my buddy starts going, "Yes, yes, yes." And the next thing I know, I feel Father Green's presence behind me. I just feel it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, he punches Joe in the side of his face, and Joe goes down on the ground. And I go, "Whoa." I look at Joe, and he's on the ground. And what did I do? I started laughing. It was pretty funny. And then you know what happened to me, right? Boom, down I go. Down goes Bob, right beside Joe. Father Green starts throwing all our books on top of us, kicking at us, telling us to get out of his library. So went home. I said, "Mom, I was in the library today and Father Green punched me, knocked me out of my chair." She goes, "What were you doing?" So I told her. She says, "Were you supposed to be doing that?" I said, "Well, no." She goes, "Well, then you got what you deserved, didn't you?" And I went, okay. So that was the end of that. This is my last of the three short stories of my lessons in life from my mom. Freshman, Joe and me were asked to be sacristans. And what that is after we didn't have a chapel yet at Bishop Ireton, they used a classroom. And we had study hall first period. So priest came in and said, "We need somebody to be sacristans, 2 of you." So Joe raises my hand and "Oh, we'll do that." What does it mean? We go in, we clean up after they had mass in the morning. We put everything back in its place. And we take the wine that's left over in the vials, and we take it into the bathroom. We pour it out, and then we clean the vials, and then put it all back into the classroom for the next morning's mass. So about a week in of doing this, Joe and I, jointly, I guess, decide what a waste pouring out the wine. So we decide, okay, we'll make a little contest here. And we take a wet paper rag, tie it in a knot, both of us. We stand back, so far from the basket, the trash basket, and we start shooting baskets. Best out of 10 wins, all right? While we're drinking the wine, instead of pouring it out, we're drinking the wine. One day, Father McKay, who's the principal of Bishop Ireton, just happens to come into the bathroom, and we're standing there taking our shots, and and he goes, "Gentlemen, what are you doing?" Hold on, I got a call. There you go. He says, "Gentlemen, what are you doing?" And my friend says, "Well, we're just shooting baskets, Father." He says, "Is that right? I want you in my office in 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes, clean up this mess, and I want you in my office." So he walks out the door, and it's one of those slow closing doors, and we're standing there in shock, and then we throw our rags out the door. True story. He opens the door back up and says, "And pick up those rags." I go, "Whoa, okay." He has eyes in the back of his head. You can see through the door. What? So we go into his office. He said, "Gentlemen, what you did is wrong. You know that." We asked Father. He says, "Okay, you guys have detention for 3 months." 3 months? Father, he says, 3 months. You will report to Mr. Spencer in the gym, and that'll be that. Now, remember, we're in coat and tie, dress shoes, coat. We're all dressed up every day. You had to. So we report for the first day of detention, and Mr. Spencer's 6'7" and a bad man. He's a badder man than Father Green. So Mr. Spencer has left a note there, okay, on his door saying, "Report to the parking lot, lower parking lot." So lower parking lot has parking place, but has a big island that goes way down and comes back, and all the cars park in. So it's a big island. So we show up in the parking lot with our books. There were no book bags back then. Nobody had a knapsack or anything. You carried your books under your arms for homework. So we show up down there. Mr. Spencer's not there yet. And all of a sudden he comes down the steps with a folding chair and paper. So he unfolds his chair, he sits down, and he starts correcting his phys ed papers, because he was a phys ed teacher. And we're all standing around. I thought we were going to clean up trash or do something. He goes, "Gentlemen, I want you to line up," because there was about 30 of us. He said, "I want you to line up in rows of 5, straight across. 5, then another row behind them, 5, 5, 5, 5. And when I say begin running, you will begin running. Down around the parking lot, back up, and come by. When you come by me, as I look up, if your line is not perfect, these are the words you will hear. 10 more." And we're all going, "Ah." He says, "That's the way it is. Line up." So we lined up, we got into our groups, and he said, "Begin running in your dress shoes with your books under your arms." So we ran and we ran and we ran. If you had a smoker in your group, he would lag behind, and of course, he'd give you 5 more, 10 more. Me, he would do it anyway. So finally, we started getting smarter in our old age, Joe and me. We started leaving books in our locker, right? So we come down, we only have 1 book. But you know what Mr. Spencer did, of course? He brought books for us. So then you had your books. You're running with books. We did that for 3 months. 3 months. And after, the first day of detention, I went home and told my mom. I said, "Mom." She goes, "What were you doing?" I told her what I was doing. She goes, "Well, you certainly shouldn't have been doing that." And I went, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "That was the end of it. End of story." So the lesson is, you're going to be a knucklehead, you're going to pay for it, and you own up to it. And I think back at those times now, and I got everything I deserved. Everything. So those are the lessons in life from Bob. There you go.